All right, and we are back. 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 Welcome. All right, and we are back. And today we're back with another reaction video. And this time we're going to be checking out a new channel here. It's going to be Arcade Disciple. And this is going to be an interesting video here. This is what if Moses was a Pokemon trainer. So this is just slightly getting more into back into the religious videos, I should say. You guys know I don't want that to disappear as part of the content that I, participate in here. So obviously we're going to mix that in. Last year or so has been a little rough on me, honestly, just with passing of people that I love. So it's just, I'm getting back into it slowly but surely, and I'm sure this video would be a great way to hop back into that. So we're going to go ahead and check it out. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. You literally never know what I'll put out next. Unless you recommend something, then I put it out there, and then that person knows, but most of you don't. So there you go. Now, also, if you haven't already, if you're just watching this video, but you haven't subscribed to Arcade Disciple, I'm going to need you to go ahead and hit that link down in the description below. Go ahead and subscribe, comment on all his videos, let him know that I sent you. Tell him to subscribe back. We'll see what we can do. Maybe he'll subscribe back. I don't know. Just go over there and be like, hey, I saw the reaction. I saw the video. I watched the original content too. I thought they were both great. I was like, whoa, it was just like such a synchronized combination of, two great channels. So I had to subscribe to both. That's what you would say. So, yeah. And if, so go ahead and subscribe to him. I'm just rambling now. I'm sorry, guys. Oh yeah, one more thing. I know I don't ever mention this, but I will try to mention it in this one video here. So that is, if you guys don't like, comment, and subscribe, more importantly, subscribe, YouTube will come through that door right over there, and they will. What if Moses was a Pokemon trainer?
What if Moses was a Pokemon trainer? Yeah, I know, it sounds totally random, but hear me out. Lately I've been wondering, what would it look like if real people stepped into the Pokemon world? And by that...
Not great. I mean, have you seen Pokemon? Do you know what they can do to people in real life? Like, Charizard is taking out whole cities because some random crazy person was depressed one day or something. It'd be horrible. I don't know. We'll see.
Actually lived in it, caught Pokemon, and battled with them and went on epic adventures. Sounds pretty cool, right?
Here's I'm doing this exact face, but it's also in like suspicion, where it's like, is that cool? Or is that life-threatening on a daily basis for most people? Imagine being the guy who doesn't have a crazy, world-ending level power Pokemon. Excuse me. Now you're just like, you're trying to defend yourself against a city with a Rattata. Like, hey, you might be able to get some people, but a guy comes at you with a level 100 Pikachu, your whole town is screwed. And that's the sad reality of Pokemon right there.
But imagine this. What if someone from the Bible did the same thing? And that's when it hit me. What if Moses, the guy who parted the Red Sea and led an entire nation through the wilderness, was dropped into the Pokemon universe? What kind of trainer?
Not Kyogre. He would get I don't know if he's getting Kyogre. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I want to say Jesus would get the Kyogre, but like that, I don't know. He would probably have some higher up Pokemon, but I don't know. He also has a video about Jesus. I might have to check that one out. But this is I'm already interested. My brain is already going. Let's go.
Where would he be?
Come on.
What would he choose to reflect his life, leadership, and
you gotta have
legacy?
A water type.
In today's video, we're diving deep into the story of Moses, matching 6 unique Pokemon to the key moments of his journey in the Bible. Stick around to the end, and I promise.
Okay, he's got to have a water type for spreading for the seas. Probably some type of rock type for the stone tablets. I'd imagine a fire type for the flame that he spoke with, and maybe like a psychic type, just because he was able to communicate with God himself. I don't know. This one's a good
You'll
one.
see
Let's see.
Pokemon and your faith in a whole new way. So what kind of team would Moses have if he were a Pokemon trainer? I mean, it's easy to picture him with a team full of strong, intimidating Pokemon. I mean, he is one of the most recognizable figures in the whole Bible. But what
Yeah.
makes Moses so interesting as a figure isn't just the big miracles that God did through him. It's how he balanced bold leadership with real-life struggles that we can all relate with when it comes to our faith. That's why
Mm-hmm.
my picks include a mix. Some powerful, some more down to earth, but all meaningful to Moses and his story. There's a ton of Pokemon to choose from, but who could be the first pick on a team built around one of the most important leaders in the Bible? Let's start strong with one of the most iconic Pokemon from the Sinnoh region, Lucario. Lucario is a
Lucario.
fighting steel type Pokemon known not
Okay.
just for its strength, but for something way more spiritual, its ability to sense aura. According to the Pokedex, Lucario can read the thoughts and emotions of other living creatures by feeling their aura. It's a Pokemon not just
Mm.
about brute force, it specializes in spiritual awareness and exacting justice. To me, that already sounds like a perfect match for Moses.
Okay.
But here's something a lot of people don't know. Lucario is actually inspired by Anubis, the ancient Egyptian god of the dead. Anubis was often shown as a jackal-headed figure who
I
judged
could
the
see
hearts
it.
of the dead and guided souls through the afterlife. Lucario shares the same sleek canine look and even the role of a guide who senses the unseen. And that makes this connection even more meaningful. Because get this, Moses grew up in Egypt. In Exodus chapter 2, we learn that Moses was raised in Pharaoh's household, trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians according to Acts chapter 7 verses 22. And he was likely surrounded by the very kinds of myths, gods, and symbols that inspired Lucario's design. While Moses ultimately
Mm.
rejected Egyptian idolatry to follow the one true God, his background shaped his perspective and his mission. Pairing Moses with a Pokemon that mirrors Egyptian culture not only reflects his roots, but also his decision to rise above them. Lucario is also known for its strong sense of justice. In the movie Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, Lucario is portrayed as a Pokemon who sacrifices itself for the sake of others and stays loyal
Okay.
to its mission even when misunderstood. That's Moses in a nutshell. After killing an Egyptian who was abusing a Hebrew slave in Exodus chapter 2 verses 11 through 12, Moses fled for his life and spent years in exile. He knew what it meant to wrestle with justice, to feel misunderstood, and to carry the weight of leadership. And how
Okay.
about this other cool connection? Lucario evolves from Riolu only when it forms a strong bond of friendship with its trainer during the day. So in other words, it grows through relationship and a deep sense of trust, which reflects Moses' own transformation. He didn't start out as a confident leader. He doubted himself, he questioned his
True.
ability to speak, and even asked God to send someone else in Exodus chapter 4, verses 10 through 13. But over time, through a deep, trusting relationship with God, Moses grew to be one of the most influential and faithful leaders in all of Scripture.
The evolution. It's like he evolved into the Moses that we know. So I do like this. I like the intertwining of obviously Pokemon and like Christianity. Guys, this is definitely, if you haven't realized already, a Christian eccentric video. Other people who if you have any other religious backgrounds or faiths, just let's just watch this and follow along. I do have other videos as well, but the more important thing is that we all focus here on what's going on and relate to the situation. uh so outside of that, I really enjoy this. It's such a really good mingling, and it's like kind of ironic because growing up, I went to a church that it wasn't Pokemon. I think it was like Yu-Gi-Oh cards where they were saying were really bad, and it was like the devil. Uh, I don't know about Pokemon though. I don't think my church specifically. Whoa, microphone, calm down. Microphone, calm down. I don't know. My church specifically talked about Pokemon, but I do remember Yu-Gi-Oh, and I do remember watching a video of some other churches talking about Pokemon being evil. So this is a nice kind of like combination where it's like, hey, Pokemon's not evil. It's a man-made creation. We made it. God made us, that type of thing, I'm sure. But whatever his reasoning for it, I enjoy it.
Even Lucario's dual typing says something about Moses' character. As a fighting type, it's bold, disciplined, and ready to act. And as a
Okay.
steel type, it's resilient, durable, and able to withstand pressure. Moses needed both in his position of leadership. He had to face Pharaoh, navigate plagues, lead a nation through a desert, and constantly intercede for his people when things went sideways. Deuteronomy chapter 34 verse 10 says, "Since then, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face." So if we're building a team around Moses, a man shaped by Egypt and called by God, forged in both justice and mercy, Lucario isn't just a cool pick, it's a perfect one. It
I
reflects
like it.
Moses' unique background, his strength under pressure, and his heart for righteousness and truth. But Moses wasn't just a leader, he was also a wanderer, and sometimes his wandering brought him to a place of encounter with God that marked his leadership for life. He knew what it meant to live as an outsider, but also encounter God in ways no one else has. And that brings us to our next pick, Ogerpon.
Ogre
If
Paw.
Lucario represents Moses' roots in Egypt and his growing sense of justice, then Ogerpon is all about his transformation, specifically that moment when Moses had a personal encounter with God that changed everything. Let me introduce to you Ogerpon, one of the newest legendary Pokemon from the Teal Mask DLC in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Ogerpon is a grass-type Pokemon that can take on different forms depending on the mask that it wears, but the form that makes this Pokemon stand out most for Moses is its Hearthflame mask form, which gives it a grass and fire typing, which is incredibly rare in the Pokemon world. And as soon as I saw that typing, I thought of one of the most iconic moments in Moses' life, the burning bush.
Yeah.
In
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Burning bush, fire, and grass type. Are there any other again, I haven't played Pokemon in a while, so I don't know about a lot of these newer Pokemon. This one seems interesting though, because for me personally, rarely are the grass types cool. Like I'm more of a water type guy, a water type trainer, and then fire, and then electric, and then normal. Psychic is probably my like third favorite, honestly. But you know, things like that. I'm just not a big like grass, bug, poison type of guy. You know, I kind of feel like some of those are cool. You know, you get some Weedrills, some Butterfrees, some Pokemon that I don't know, probably some Mucks in there or something. But outside of that, it's not. I'm not looking at it like, oh wow, I need to have a grass type in my six. You know, they'll be in the PC. You know, you go hang out in the PC with all the other PC Pokemon.
Exodus chapter 3, Moses comes across a bush that's on fire, but this bush isn't consumed by the flame. It's actually glowing, radiant, and full of God's presence. It's in this moment that a voice comes from the bush, and there's no mistaking that it's the voice of God. Through this bush, God calls Moses to go back to Egypt and lead his people to freedom. The bush was both natural and supernatural, just like Ogerpon. A grass type that radiates fire, that's something you don't see every day. It's wild, it's unexpected, and it's exactly the kind of image that reflects Moses' encounter with the divine. And it's not
That
just
makes
Ogerpon's
sense.
typing, but also her backstory that makes her the perfect fit for this part of Moses' journey. In Scarlet and Violet, Ogerpon is misunderstood and feared by the people of her region. They see her as a monster because of her appearance and the legends passed down about her. But in reality, she's kind, protective, and deeply loyal to those she trusts. Sound familiar? I think that feeling of being misunderstood and being the outsider, Moses knew all about it. Moses was rejected by his own people and was feared by the Egyptians. The whole reason he fled into the wilderness was because of the sad reality that he didn't quite belong to either group. But it's often in that desolate place, the wilderness, where God shows up in tangible ways. For Ogerpon, her strength and her fire awaken when she's standing up for what's right, even if no one else sees it. And for Moses, it was in exile that he met God and received a calling that would define the rest of his life. There's also something symbolic about Ogerpon wearing masks, because Moses had his own kind of mask too. Not a literal one, but an emotional and a spiritual one. He hid behind
A metaphorical mask. Now, question, I guess just watching the gameplay as well. Should this Pokemon even really be called? It feels like a spirit that should remain free. And I guess that's the thing that we should probably have a deeper conversation about with like legendary Pokemon. Like, should we even be catching them? They feel like things like presence in the natural world that they always maintain some type of balance, and it's like, whoa, now we're catching this. I have a Kyogre. I thought this thing controlled the seas. Who's controlling the seas now? I mean, you could say Lugia, but somebody already caught him. I already caught him in silver. Who's making sure that Oho isn't, is doing what he's supposed to do? I don't know. Nobody, because I caught him in gold. No, what's happening with this right now? Mewtwo is the only acceptable one that we should have caught. Even Mew. I don't even know if we should be catching Mew. Does that do anything in the Pokemon realm where it's like, yo, we probably shouldn't catch this? It does something for life that's necessary. I don't know. What happens to Pokemon after the trainer, they die. What happens to the Pokemon? Do they just go back to being free? Do they get passed down to the other generation? Do Pokemon lifespans live, have about the same amount of time? Because realistically, this thing probably 100 years, hundreds of years old. It's been protecting this city. Maybe we shouldn't catch it. That's just me. Obviously, you're gonna catch it, use it for a good purpose, beat the game, all that stuff. But should you though? Maybe it's doing its thing. Maybe this village was only safe because this thing was protecting it. I don't know. This is a deeper conversation. We need to have it. Guys, comment down below. Should we be catching legendaries? You know, Arcade Disciple, question directly to you. Should we be catching legendaries? Is that a thing that we should be doing? I want to know your opinion as well.
And his doubts and insecurities when God first called him. In Exodus chapter 3 verse 11, he says, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" But just like Ogerpon gains strength and new abilities when she embraces one of her forms, Moses steps into a whole new strength when he embraces God's calling for his life. Even the way Ogerpon is portrayed in battles reflects Moses' mission. She's fierce and focused, willing to fight for what matters, especially when protecting someone or something she cares about. And that's the Moses we know through scripture. Once he received his mission from God, he struggled, but he didn't give up. He stood toe-to-toe with Pharaoh, called down plagues, and led a massive, complaining group of people through a harsh desert and wilderness, all because he believed in the one who called him. So why would Ogerpon be on Moses' team? Because she represents the turning point, the moment where fear meets fire, when exile becomes encounter, and where an ordinary life is interrupted by an extraordinary calling. Her rare grass and fire typing mirrors the miraculous bush that didn't burn up, and her misunderstood nature reflects Moses, who wandered the wilderness before becoming one of the greatest leaders in biblical history. And that's just the beginning, because after Moses accepts God's call and frees the Israelites from the hands of Pharaoh, the next big challenge is staring him down, the Red Sea. He's got to somehow, someway, cross an ocean to secure their freedom, but the only way to get out of Egypt isn't around the ocean, but through it. And to represent one of the biggest miracles ever done, we've got to bring in a massive team member who can cross an ocean like it's nothing. And that massive team member, it's got to be Kyogre. Kyogre is a legendary water-type Pokemon introduced in Generation 3 as the version mascot for Pokemon Sapphire. According to Pokemon lore, Kyogre is said to have expanded the seas and has the power to control the ocean itself.
Yeah, see, again, this is what I'm talking about the first time. Should we even be catching this thing? Is that even like, is that a thing? Like, come on, it expanded the seas. It controls the oceans. Who's going to control the oceans now? Again, if you say Lugia, I'm going to respond with the same thing. I already caught him in silver. How is he going to help? Who's going to control the legendary birds? I don't know, because I caught them in blue.
Pokemon isn't just strong, it's a powerhouse. Its very presence changes the environment around it. In fact, its ability Drizzle causes rain to pour as soon as it enters the battle, and its signature move Origin Pulse channels the ocean's might into waves of devastating force. But what really makes Kyogre the perfect choice for Moses' team is its direct connection to the sea, and not just in a symbolic way. One of the most famous moments in Moses' story is when he leads the Israelites out of Egypt and right up to the edge of the Red Sea. Behind them, Pharaoh's army. In front of them, a wall of water. And just when it looks like there's no way out, God tells Moses to raise his staff over the sea, and just like that, the Red Sea splits in two. Exodus chapter 14 verse 21 says, "Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided." Kyogre doesn't just swim through the sea, it controls it. And if there's any Pokemon that mirrors the power of that moment, it's this one. Kyogre's lore even says that it has the ability to resolve conflict conflicts by bringing rain and restoring moisture to dry land. In contrast to its rival Groudon, who represents the sun and land, Kyogre brings peace through water. And Moses, he wasn't just leading people out of Egypt for fun, he was on a mission from God to restore peace, establish order, and guide a broken people towards freedom in the Lord. Just like Kyogre, Moses served as an instrument to bring peace in the midst of chaos. And let's not forget, Kyogre isn't a flashy, fireworks-style Pokemon. It's a deep, ancient, and powerful Pokemon. Kind of like the way God worked through Moses. Sometimes quietly, sometimes dramatically, but always with purpose. Just like Kyogre changes the battlefield simply by arriving, Moses changed the entire course of history by stepping into God's calling. I also love how visually epic this pairing feels. I mean, just picture it. Moses, staff in one hand, Pokeball in the other, riding on the back of Kyogre through crashing waves and thunderous storms. It perfectly captures the awe of that moment at the red.
You know, it's like, it is cool, but I think, again, I'm still going to bring up that point about legendaries. And also, this feels like, this feels like a Pokemon that Jesus should have. I don't know. Like, maybe it's just me. I just feel like if anybody's going to have it, it's going to be Jesus. Like, you got to make sure that he has this. There's other cool water Pokemon. I give you Lapras, You get a good Lapras in. I'm sure you can split a C for a little bit with Lapras, but maybe not Kyogre. I'll even give you the Lugia. I'll give you Lugia. You can have that one. I'll trade it to you from my silver game so you can have Lugia. But I don't know. This is a cool image though. This is a really cool image. You got me there. I can't deny that. I'm just looking at it and I'm like, this don't feel like you, buddy. This don't feel like what you have in your arsenal. Like, maybe I'm just not familiar with your game, but at the same time, Moses, Kyogre, like, that don't even really go with me. I'm just thinking in my head, like, should Moses have a Kyogre? And in my head, I'm like, nah, probably not. Probably not. Give him something a little bit less powered, a little bit legendary, but give it really good though. Like, really good, not legendary type stuff, Like, get a Blastoise, blast the seas in half or something. Again, even Lugia, I'm just like, maybe. But I'm just thinking, like, on the levels, he feels more like a Lugia guy.
Red Sea, when the Israelites walk through water with walls on either side. It's not just cinematic, it's a new way to look at this biblical classic. And if you fast forward a bit in Moses' story, you'll notice something else. After crossing the Red Sea, Moses leads the Israelites through the wilderness, in which they heavily relied on water to survive. And each time they cry out in thirst, God provides water through Moses, whether from a spring, a river, or even a rock in Exodus chapter 17.
Oh, because he can automatically generate water wherever he goes. He makes it rain everywhere he goes. That makes sense.
Verse 6. Though the rock was an example of Moses' disobedience, water still plays a huge role in Moses' story. It's more than a physical resource, it becomes a symbol of deliverance and dependence on God. So why would Kyogre be on Moses' team? Because no other Pokemon captures the scale, power, and significance of the sea parting moment like Kyogre does. It represents Moses' faith under pressure, his trust in God's power, and his role as a leader who didn't just survive the impossible, but walked straight through it. So now that Moses and the Israelites are officially out of Egypt, you might think the story ends there, but in reality, their journey is far from over. After crossing the Red Sea, they step into the wilderness, where God doesn't just provide miracles, but also reveals his law. At Mount Sinai, Moses climbs a mountain to receive something that will shape the identity of God's people for generations, the 10 Commandments. And to represent that powerful moment where stone, structure, and divine order meet, we need a Pokemon that's built like a fortress and shaped like a pyramid. That's where Stakataka comes in. Hey there, before we move on, if you've been enjoying the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscription.
Hey, guys, make sure you subscribe to Arcade Disciple again. This is great content so far. I'm really loving it. Make sure you give him a subscription. Turn your notifications on for him. Comment on all his videos. Again, tell him I sent you. Tell him to subscribe back. This is a cool intersection between religion, specifically Christianity, and video games and like game culture. And just like the fact that he has so much knowledge about both is pretty impressive. So guys, make sure you're giving him the support.
Haven't already. It helps the channel grow and gets more faith in gaming videos like this one out for more people to see. Thanks, and let's continue the video. Let's be honest, Stakataka might be one of the strangest looking Pokemon in the
Who is
entire
Stakataka?
franchise, and one of the weirdest picks in this
Hit
entire
hit me
video.
with it.
But
Who's
trust me, once you
Stakataka?
dig a little deeper and look a little more closely at what it represents, it starts to make a whole lot more sense, especially when we're connecting it to Moses. Stakataka is a rock steel
What
type
the-
Pokemon introduced in Generation 7 as one of the Ultra Beasts, and it's literally made of stone blocks stacked together like a fortress.
Ultra Beast, guys, I am old. I am like, these don't even look like they're from the same anime. I mean, these couple do, but this guy over here, this does not even look like a Pokemon. This is more Digimon types. And what is this guy? This looks like paper mache. This is like a paper mache Pokemon. I mean, these look normal Pokemon. Like these look like some crazy. This one over here, this tall black and white one, I could see that being a Digimon. But you know, at least these three here, this triangle team here, the Phil Jackson triangle offense right here, they look like Pokemon. But this guy, he feels like a Digimon. This feels like a Digimon. This is like an evolved form Digimon. Also, I'm not a big fan of this. Whatever's happening right here, I don't like it. Visually, it draws me towards it, and I don't like that. This is, I'm just not a huge fan of this design. And this guy, again, maybe I just need to see his face, but he's looking, he looking part Digimon, part Pokemon right now. He's like half and half, but these three 100% Pokemon.
Its body isn't just one creature, it's made up of many sentient stones working together as a single unit. According to its Pokedex entries, it's shaped like a massive walking wall, a living structure that's heavy and slow moving but unbelievably hard to take down. And here's some trivia for you. When I was researching for this video and brainstorming different options for Moses' team, I had a hard time nailing down his pick, but when I saw Stakataka, I immediately connected it to three things relating to Moses. First is a pyramid, which makes sense considering Moses' Egyptian background. Second is a mountain, which Moses ends up climbing in Exodus. And 3, stone tablets, which connect directly to one of the most important moments in his story, receiving the 10 Commandments from God. In Exodus chapter 19 and 20, Moses leads the Israelites to Mount Sinai, and Moses climbs the mountain to meet with God. Thunder crashes, smoke covers the peak, and God himself descends in great power. It's an intense scene, and out of that divine encounter, God gives Moses the 10 Commandments, engraved by his own hand on 2 stone tablets, as seen in Exodus chapter 31 verse 18. These weren't just a bunch of rules, they were the foundation for the covenant between God and his people.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't there also more commandments? Like, I think there were supposed to be like around 40 altogether. So even having more than just 10 bricks making up this thing would make sense. So this is actually a really good one. I like this pick right here.
You might be wondering where I'm going with this, but stick with me. Stakataka is made entirely of stone, all being stacked and structured. Each block, though small on its own, plays a vital role in creating a powerful whole. That reminds me a lot of how each commandment, though short and simple, is part of the larger design of how God's people were meant to live.
I don't know, that not committing murder one feels really big and powerful though. Even though they're all the same, there's no commandment that is bigger or lesser than any other commandment. They're all equal. They're equally things you should not be doing, and they're equally things that you should be paying attention to. There's no like, oh, I only committed this, so that's not as bad as that. No, that's not how that works. You do any of them, you get the same punishment, and you have to go through the steps to ask for forgiveness and be fully honest and actually repent in order to get a resolve from those. So don't go against the commandments. Listen to the commandments, obey them. They're good for, even if you're not a religious person, they're just good rules to follow in life. They're really good laws to have, in society. And most societies have already made their versions of those type of laws into modern day society. So you got to follow most of those anyway. So there you go.
Together, they form the structure of a just and holy society. The 10 Commandments lay out the basic understanding of how each believer should relate with God and with one another. Stakataka doesn't just look like a pile of stones, it represents the weight and significance of sacred structure, just like those stone tablets. Even its typing fits. As a rock and steel type, Stakataka is immovable. It's built for endurance and designed to take on hits without falling apart. And that's exactly like Moses. After all the miracles, Moses didn't retire. He had to lead an entire nation of newly freed people people through complaint after complaint, crisis after crisis, all while carrying the weight of God's law and expectations on his shoulders. He had to stand firm, even when the people were crumbling. There's also something symbolic about how Stakataka isn't just one block, but it's many blocks working together. Moses wasn't just handed the laws and told, good luck. He was tasked with shaping a scattered, enslaved people into a unified nation. He had to help them move from their old understanding of the gods of Egypt to a new understanding of the one true God, Yahweh, and his covenant. Stakataka reflects that transformation perfectly. Even the way you encounter Stakataka in the games ties in. In Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Stakataka appears as a mysterious, otherworldly being, a foreign power that shows up out of nowhere with overwhelming presence, kind of like how God descended on Mount Sinai. To the Israelites, that encounter wasn't just new, it was terrifying, holy, and completely out of their realm of understanding. Moses stood at the center of that moment, not just receiving God's law, but becoming the bridge between the divine and a lost people. So why would Stakataka be on Moses' team? Because it represents such a pivotal moment in Moses' journey. The climbing of Mount Sinai, the weight of the Ten Commandments, the structuring of a new covenant people, and the solid foundation that he helped establish. Stakataka is a sturdy, strange, and downright unforgettable Pokemon, just like Moses' journey thus far. But as powerful and as structured as Moses had to be, he was still leading a wild and unpredictable group of people through a desert for 40 years.
A Toro? Don't give him a Toro. Come on.
And that journey wasn't just about strength, it was about stamina. Staying in the desert for a long and drawn out time can lead you to do some unexpected things, like, say, I don't know, worshiping a golden calf. For the next member of Moses' team, we need a Pokemon that represents Moses and the Israelites' fall from grace. So let's talk about Tauros, specifically its shiny variant from Kanto. Why shiny? Well, keep watching and I'll explain that in just a second.
I'm sorry, this don't even really fit for me. A Tauros? Of all, okay.
Tauros is a normal type Pokemon introduced in Generation 1. It's a wild bull that charges headfirst into battle with all out force. Known for its aggressive energy and relentless drive, Tauros has always been associated with strength and some pretty reckless behavior. But here's the thing that stuck out to me most. Its shiny form is colored mostly bright green, but I saw it as a perfect representation of a golden calf. Yup, a golden calf. Sound familiar? As soon as I saw that golden hue, I couldn't stop thinking about Exodus chapter 32, when Moses comes down from Mount Sinai after receiving the Ten Commandments, only to find the Israelites worshiping a literal golden calf. The same people who had just been rescued from Egypt, who had walked through the parted Red Sea, were now bowing down to a statue of a cow. You can feel Moses' heartbreak and his frustration. Verse 19 says, when Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them into pieces at the foot of the mountain. Now, I'm not saying Tauros only represents the idol that Moses destroyed. Instead, I think Tauros also represents the wild, impulsive behavior of the people Moses was trying to lead. A kind of chaotic energy he constantly had to wrangle the way you would a regular bull. And the fact that we're using the shiny version of Tauros, that's the perfect visual reminder of how the people fell into sin when they lost sight of God. Tauros is known for being difficult to tame. In the anime and the games, it often charges uncontrollably when provoked. It doesn't think through things, it just reacts. And that's exactly the kind of behavior the Israelites displayed in the wilderness. When Moses was gone for just a little too long, they panicked and convinced Aaron to make them a god that they could see. Just like a herd of Tauros with no shepherd, they spiraled into chaos. But here's the twist that makes this story so good. Moses didn't give up on the Israelites. Yes, he was furious, and yes, he smashed the tablets, but after that moment, he went right back up to the mountain and interceded for them. He begged God not to destroy them in Exodus chapter 32, verses 11 through 14. He didn't just lead the people, he fought for them. And even when they acted like wild bulls, that kind of patience and leadership is something Tauros doesn't naturally have. It's something that Moses had to develop while dealing with a stubborn nation. Tauros also fits because it represents the kind of rugged survival instinct that was needed in the wilderness. The Israelites weren't living in luxury, they were moving, fighting, complaining, and constantly being tested. In many ways, they were kind of like a restless herd that Moses had to keep from running off a cliff. Tauros captures that wilderness chaos, unrefined, stubborn, and constantly pushing against the limits. So why would a
Hold on. Before we continue, can we go back for a second to talk about how this Tauros only weighs 194 pounds? That's... What is this, like a baby? It's 4 feet 7 inches off the ground. That makes more sense. But I feel like real bulls weigh like, 600 pounds or something. They're like all muscle. And again, this has nothing to do with the actual video. This is more just like the realism in Pokemon. Like, I feel like that's pretty low for a bull. That's like a baby bull type of weight, just look at all this. Look at all this right here. Look at all just this section right here, from heel to back. I don't know what they call the tip of their back, but the back, the spine. That's definitely got to be at least 100 pounds right there. That's 100 pounds right there. The rest of that's like another 200 right there. This thing should be like 300 pounds, 400. And also, what are these, metal or something like that? Like, that weighs it down. Give me 250, no, 200, yeah, 250 more pounds on this thing, and I'll call that realism.
Chaos, unrefined, stubborn, and constantly pushing against the limits. So why would a shiny Tauros be on Moses' team? Because it's a reminder of the challenges that Moses faced, not just from the enemies outside, but from the wild, untamed hearts of his own people.
Be honest, this probably should be gold and green. With the green, the fur should be green. The main calf should be gold, especially if it looks that gold in the game. Like, come on,
And the shiny color, it's a visual symbol of the golden calf, the moment when Israel fell hard, and when Moses had to decide whether to quit or stand in the gap. He chose the harder path of mercy and patient leadership. And I think Tauros, for all its wild nature, would be a constant reminder of what Moses endured and ultimately overcame. Now, for the final member of Moses' team, we're slowing things down a bit. We've seen a wide range of Pokemon, from fighting to fire to water to rock and more. But now I think it's time for something soft, wiser, and deeply meaningful. And for that, I couldn't think of a better Pokemon than Drampa. Drampa is a normal dragon-type Pokemon introduced in Generation 7. It's often described as a gentle, elderly dragon who's incredibly kind and protective towards children and those it loves. In the Pokedex, Drampa is said to live alone in the mountains, watching over villages from afar. But here's the catch: while it's normally calm and affectionate, if something harms the innocent, Drampa turns fierce. It's not explosive like Tauros or massive like Kyogre, but it's wise, deliberate, and deeply relational. But in other words, it's exactly like Moses in his final years. Deuteronomy chapter 34.
Okay, now I will go on another slight rant here. Who's gonna protect those villages now after he catches them? Guys, this Pokemon was protecting villages. Again, it lived in the mountains, secluded by itself, so it can look at all the villages it loves and be like, let me protect these guys. Now something happens, it's like, yo, can we hit up Moses as soon as possible? We need that dragon to protect us again. Yo, I mean, they got phones in this world. It's Pokemon, so I imagine he has a phone. Now I gotta call him. Hey, where you at? Did you get a flying Pokemon yet? I didn't see you mention a flying Pokemon on his list. How is he going to get there in time? I hope this is on an island, because he's got to swim there. He got Kyogre. He's going to part the seas. He can walk there or he can swim there. He needs to be able to teleport or fly. Hopefully he got a Pokemon that can teleport. I don't know which one you said could do that. I don't think you mentioned one that could, but he probably should have at least one, because somebody got to go back and protect this village now. I'm sorry. I hate to be that guy. I hate to bring this up. Somebody does need to protect that village. Because the dragon, that was his whole thing. It wasn't even like they paid him to do it. It was just he was doing it for the love of the game. He's putting up 40 against random people trying to attack the villages, and all of a sudden he had captured Pokemon. Now you got to be part of the team of 6. You go where I go, but you know where he wanted to be, right there in those mountains, protecting that village or villages. I don't know how many villages there are. There's some random kid getting mugged, and he was there to protect him every week, but now he ain't there no more. That kid go to his, his weekly store run, and now he gets mugged. Dragon ain't there to protect them. Moses is already protecting somebody else at the moment. He can't be in 2 places at once. That's not one of his abilities. So bam, what do you do then? It's a sad life.
It's a powerful picture of the end of Moses' life. After everything he experienced, being born in Egypt, plagues, crossing the Red Sea, the wilderness, receiving the 10 Commandments, Moses stands on Mount Nebo overlooking the Promised Land. God shows it to him, but tells him that he won't enter it. Verse 7 says that Moses was 120 years old when he died, and yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. That verse never stuck out to me until now. Even in his old age, Moses had strength, but it was more than just an earthly strength. It was seasoned and refined. He wasn't just the fiery leader anymore. He was the wise elder, the gentle guardian of God.
Old man strength ain't no joke, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all think it's playtime with these old people Old man strength is not a joke. If you one of them, what do they call themselves now? YNs. Hey, you gonna learn about old man strength one day. You gonna mess with the wrong old person. You'll be like, oh, I got him. Run the hands, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I didn't know you were like that, old man. I ain't know. And then all of a sudden you on the ground, and it's like this old dude is just pummeling you. It ain't gonna be fun then. Now you gonna have to jump him. And you know what? He might have a contingency plan for that. So don't mess with the old guys. Watch anything. Old people, don't underestimate them. They got that, you know, that hook it looks slow, but when it hits. When that hook hits, it's like whoa, ah, e, ah. You don't know where it's coming from. You saw it, but it's faster than it looks too. It looks slow, but all of a sudden it's like wow, it's got velocity to it.
God's people. That's exactly the kind of presence Drampa brings to the team. It reflects the end of Moses' journey, where his leadership wasn't just about parting seas or calling down fire, but about passing the torch, mentoring Joshua, preparing the people, and trusting that God's promise would continue without him. Drampa also lives in solitude, which echoes how Moses often withdrew to meet with God. I mean, think about it. Moses regularly pitched a tent outside the camp where he would speak with the Lord. His relationship with God was intimate, quiet, and full of trust. Drampa's mountain-dwelling lifestyle captures that kind of reflective solitude perfectly. And while Drampa might not be flashy and fierce at first glance, it's a reminder that spiritual maturity isn't loud, it's steady. Moses didn't end his life with a bang or another huge miracle, he ended it with peace, with a legacy that we remember to this day, with a view of God's promise just ahead, trusting that his faithfulness would echo through generations. So why would Drampa be on Moses' team? Because it honors his final chapter. It's the quiet wisdom after a life of chaos, the grace that follows justice, and the gentle strength of a leader who, even at his end, still looked forward in faith.
Okay.
So there you have it. Lucario, Ogerpon, Kyogre, Stakataka, Shiny Tauros, and Drampa. Moses' team looks very unusual at first glance.
I ain't gonna lie. I wasn't the big fan of Tauros, but I feel like you actually convinced me with your reasoning. Uh, Lucaria, I didn't even see that. I felt like that came out of nowhere for me. But then again, you reasoned it into my head that was a good idea. Also, the dragon, that one, I kind of just immediately understood why. And then also with the stone temple guy, I couldn't remember his name. Stack Attacker. Yeah, I understood those. My only thing, and again, I only bring this up because it just came into my mind as I was watching the video. Uh, the only one I really disagreed with is Kyogre. I just feel like, give him a slightly powered down Pokemon. But at the same time, I get it and I respect it. I understand why you chose it. And you know what? I would even say I agree with it. I would just say, were there any other ones we could have gave him? But yeah, it just brings me back to the should we be catching legendaries. I never thought about this before until just now. But now that he just told me what they be doing for people. He explained in detail what the Pokemon does in its own lore. And I love that explanation. I love that he gave that to me. And now, but thinking about the lore, I'm more like, yo, lore wise, shouldn't these Pokemon be free? Like, should we even have Pokemon slavery for real? Like, yeah, I guess that's a whole nother question. But like, the more important is, if we're gonna do the Pokemon thing where we're capturing them, should we at least let the legendaries be free? Like it feels like they're like natural entities meant to be put on the earth for a specific reason. So like maybe they shouldn't go because like they're like you should team up with them, but you don't own them. You don't capture them in a Pokeball. They're too their presence is too needed in the world to be confined to the space of a Pokeball. They need the expansive universe to really maintain that. All the things I'm rambling about. You finish the rest.
But it's one that powerfully reflects the life, leadership, and legacy of Moses, including his Egyptian roots, his divine calling, his bold leadership, his role in receiving God's law, the chaos he had to endure, and the wisdom he carried to the very end. What
Yes.
if Moses was a Pokemon trainer? Well, if he had a team, I think it'd look a little something like this. But
I
is
can
that
see it.
all? Surely there's something deeper that we can take away from this team, other than Moses would be a pretty awesome trainer. And honestly, I think that's the beauty of learning more about Moses through this video. Moses'
Yeah.
story isn't just about the miracles and the tragic moments that he faced, it's about faith. It's about trusting God through every high and low, even when the journey feels long and the destination seems out of reach. Reading through Moses' story and
Message.
thinking about this team helped me appreciate just how layered of a human he really was. A man that was
Real.
flawed, but loved God, and did everything he could to answer the call. And maybe, just maybe, his team helps us see that even in the games and the stories that we love, like Pokemon, we can find powerful reminders of the people God used to shape history, and also be reminded that he's still writing a story out of us. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Moses' Pokemon team,
I
I know
did.
you'll enjoy this one about Jesus' team. Click here to get
Yes.
a breakdown of Jesus' team, or this other
Yes.
video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy from my channel. Thanks.
YouTube thinks I've never played Fire Emblem, so how does YouTube know I enjoy this? I don't know. But I did enjoy this video. And you know what? There you go, guys. Make sure everyone subscribes to him. Make sure you all go to his channel, like, comment, subscribe, all the fun stuff there. This was a great video. I really enjoyed this, and I really want to do this "What if Jesus was a Pokemon trainer" video. So, guys, comment down below if I should do that. If you like this, again, subscribe to Arcade Disciple, a really good channel. He's mixing in, you know, Christianity with video games. It is something that rarely gets combined together, and it, even when it does, even more rarely done properly. And I feel like he did both of those in an incredible way. Editing, everything was on point. So give your boys some support. Go ahead and comment down on this channel, subscribe, all the fun stuff. And if you like my commentary and you want to hear about more stuff that I do here, you can also like my channel. You can hit that like button down there. A really cool thing happens, and then you could be a contestant to win a prize, which is my appreciation. Woo! I know. It's such a coveted prize, but it's very easy to obtain. It's just by subscribing to the channel, because I appreciate all my subscribers. I appreciate every single one of them. So if you want that gifted prize of my personal appreciation, make sure you subscribe. And if you followed this whole time, if you enjoyed these rants and ramblings and all the things that I do, then again, subscribe. We have a lot of fun here. We do a lot of fun things, and recommend some things down below so I can check those out as well. So with that being said, guys, I want to say thank you. I love you. Bye.